Hi guys, very good morning. This is Vidisha Vitlani and I welcome you to this webinar for today. As you know, I'm going to take up writing task 1 and for writing task 1 we're going to do the academic component, that is you will learn how to write an infographic, how to actually do a graph together. First of all, let me tell you something about myself. I'm Vidisha. My name is Vidisha, and I work for the Aussies group. Um, Today, we're conducting these webinars because over the offline coaching, we end up teaching you how to do a graph, or there are a lot of other trainers teaching you how to do a graph, but that happens over a course of time. So in this 1 hour, what I try to do is I try to cover so many things that you may, as many things as you can. And in 1 hour, I would try to give you a very detailed insight on what the graph is, how to do about it, how to go about it, and stuff like that. Right. Let's go for this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a PPT. I'm going to explain a PPT to you. And at the end of the PPT, I'll be asking you various questions. You can ask me various questions in between. I'm absolutely okay with answering all your queries in the middle of the session. If you have any queries, what you can do is there is a chat box, there's a question answer box here. I want you to post the queries in the question answer box, not in the chat box. See, what happens is when you post it in the chat box, it becomes a little uncomfortable for me to browse both the things at one time, right? So possibly just put all your queries in the question answer box. I'll definitely try to answer all of these. Okay, let's start with the PPT first. Okay. In case any queries, post it. If I'm explaining something, I might explain it to you later on. Okay. Firstly, what is the task 1 about? You have to explain an infographic. Infographic is nothing but a graph that you're supposed to explain. There'll be a figure in front of you and you have to write it in your own words. Okay, now how many bands are there for this? There are 3 bands for this. There are 20 minutes for you to attack this question type and you have to write it in minimum 150 words. Okay, a lot of students actually underestimate the importance of an infographic. Understand this thing that you have 3 bands for this. You don't have to use your own perceptions. Your only job here is to write it in your own words. So you can score maximum here. Your average here can be improved when coming to the writing portion. See, we have this habit that we give a lot of importance to essays, and which is obvious, which you have to because naturally it has higher bands. But meanwhile, we always undervalue task 1. Let's say out of 6 you're getting around 4.5 in your essay, but you just score around 1.5, so you just have an average of 2 bands here, 6 bands here. But rather if you're scoring 2.5, you can definitely reach up to your 7 target. So please never underestimate the importance of task 1. It is equally important to practice. In fact, it should be a very strong component that no matter how difficult task 1 is given to you, you end up scoring 2.53 bands out of it. Okay, moving on. What are the types of infographics? I'm very sure you must be aware with this. There is pie chart, there is bar chart, there's a table, there's flow chart, there's line graph, there's diagram, there's map. See, the first one is a pie chart. The second one is a bar chart, in case you're not acquainted with it. The third one is a map, which I have given. The fourth one is something, a line graph looks something like this. Your table is going to be this one. And this is a process chart, or sometimes even a flow chart may turn up. Okay, now a lot of students come to me with this query that is a line graph more difficult, or is a pie chart more difficult, it's a bar graph more difficult. I believe each of them are easy. All you have to do is see through them. All you have to do is understand them on the first place. There is nothing like that. There is one more query that students keep on asking me, that of recently asked topics, which are most commonly asked. So I'll tell you, mostly it's the line and the bar chart that are asked. They're quite popular compared to the pie and table. However, there is no thumb rule to this, but of lately, most of my students have got line charts and bar charts. So this is something that may help you. Okay, moving on. Right. Take a note of this. Please keep a pen and paper in hand while you study this. And I want you to take a note of this. How do you actually write the task one? What is the basic format of the task one? So I have given you the format of the task one. Any task one, be it a process diagram, be it a bar chart, be it a line chart, has to have 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph is the introduction. The second paragraph is the overview. The third paragraph is describing important data, that is a body paragraph 1. And the fourth paragraph is describing body paragraph 2. Okay, now understand how do you write an introduction. A much more detailed slide is given, but I'll just give you an overview about this. How do you write an introduction? Basically, in your introduction, you only have to paraphrase the question. That means you just have to write the question in your own words. What about the overview? In the overview, you generally have to describe the general trend. Basically, what you see at the first glance. What is an overview of something? It is something that you see at the first glance, right? Like, for example, an overview of this presentation would be good, bad, something that you have the first thought about. So that is your overview. The third is paragraph 1, where you're describing, making comparisons, drawing conclusions out of it. So that is your body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. Okay. Now, generally, the introduction is always, as you know, a very, very important component when coming to any of the write-up, because it's the first thing that the examiner sees out of you. It's the first thing that is visible. So how do you write an introduction? How exactly do you write an introduction? Firstly, your introduction should have the main idea and the general trend. Basically, a paraphrased version of the question. Now, what is paraphrased version of the question? The paraphrased version of the question is nothing but when you write the question in own words. A lot of students, I keep checking a lot of papers, and what I generally observe is they tend to copy the question, or more or less the introduction is quite similar to the question. So that's nothing that I want. Please avoid it. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to write it in a better way. You're supposed to rephrase it. When you rephrase something, that shows that you know the appropriate vocabulary, you know your appropriate sentence structures to actually change and play with the words, and that gives a very, very lasting impression. Okay, now how to write an introduction. The first thing you do is begin what the graph or bar talks about and paraphrase the title. For example, I have given you this. The line graph shows the changes in the amount of type of food, fast food consumed by Australian teenagers. And this is the, for example, this is the question. My answer is here. The line graph given here compares the fast food consumption for a period of 25 years between 1975 and 2000 of teenagers in Australia. Again, read the question and read the paraphrasing that I have done for you. You will get a much more clear idea of what I'm trying to tell you, what paraphrasing is. I've also taught you in detail in this particular presentation how to paraphrase. So again, that's going to be very useful to you for your essay as well. Go through this again. Let's go ahead. Okay, now I've done one more example for you. What you see here is a bar chart, as you know. So see, the chart below gives information on the percentage of British people giving money to charity by the age range for the years 1990 and 2010. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons wherever relevant. Again, read the question. Basically, this chart is giving me information about people who are giving money to charity, and this information is given for 2 years, and there are different age groups which I can see, which are very evident. So how do you write this? You write this with the diagram shows the level of charitable donations of people living in Britain separated by age between 1990 and 2010. Your paraphrasing or writing of the question not necessarily needs to be very long. It has to be rather precise and accurate, and it has to be something that is written in own words. You have to play with the words, no doubt. Okay. I hope this is sorted for you. How to write the introduction. So next time you write an introduction, make sure you're not just copying the question. Make sure you're not just writing it as it is just by changing one or two words. You have to change the sentence structure. Okay, I'll teach you one more detailed slide for paraphrasing. What is paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is nothing but when you write the question in your own words. I'm very sure you require it for both task one, task two, speaking, even reading. I mean, you should know which questions are paraphrased, where are the answers for this. Okay, so let's go for this. Basically, as I said, as I mentioned, if you copy the question, your marks are going to be deducted and it will be, you won't have a very high score. Now, why do you paraphrase? Paraphrase means to restate or rewrite something in the different words. See this. The apartment is very big. So rather than apartment, I have substituted the word with flat. Rather than very, I've given an adjective quiet. Rather than big, I've given the adjective spacious. Here, spacious is a relevant adjective because I'm talking about an apartment. So this is about paraphrasing. You have to write the question in your own words. You have to change the words. You have to think of related words. You have to change about different, sentence structures, and that's when you will going to get it. Right. Up to now, do you guys have any queries? If yes, put it on the chat box or the question answer box. I mean, question answer box is suggested basically. My question answer box is open. So in case you have any queries, meanwhile, you can post it. Okay, now let's go back to the format. I've taught you how to, give me a second. Let's go back to the structure. My structure has introduction. So we've learned how to paraphrase the question. We have learned how do you write the question in your own words, right? Coming to the second part. The second part is the overview. What is the overview? As I mentioned earlier, it is the bigger picture at the graph. Basically, it is something that tells you an entire outlook of the graph in just one or two statements. Now, let's see this. A very important valuable information is highlighted in the overview. One very important thing is it should never include numbers. Basically, I'm looking at the broader picture. And when I'm looking at the broader picture, I don't need figures of it. It's only a normal summary of the key features. Okay. A very important point of an overview is a very important point of the overview is the examiner looks because you can identify information, very important information from the graph. So basically, when you write an overview, the examiner will naturally figure out what's going on. Like, have you understood the graph? Have you taken a broader picture? You know, a lot of my students, they ask me how to write the overview. How do you go with the overview? So I always tell them, take your graph and put it at a distance. So whatever you see at the first look is your overview, and genuinely it works. Okay. Also, if we look at the official marking scheme, the overview word has been mentioned. That means the examiners are looking for a very perfect, very precise overview of it. So please take a very important note of this one. Okay, let's do an example. If you go to see the same bar chart as here, now what do I see as an overview? I'm sorry. Okay. What do I see as an overview? What I see as an overview here is the blue is the year 1990, 2010 is purple. This age group I see has the highest number of hours which are given. So see, basically overall, there was a general decrease in the percentage of people who denoted money over two time periods. If you, again, let's check. Basically, in 1990 and 2000, 1, 2, 3, from the age group 18 to 25 and 26 to 30, there was a general decline. And except for this particular age group, there was only the age group of 51 to 65 and over 65 showed an increasing trend. Okay, so I can simply say that there was a general decrease. However, the pattern differs between the three age groups before 50 and the two age groups after 50. So there is a distinguished pattern before 50 and after 50, which I have mentioned. So that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you about. When you look at the graph, you always have to picture, go for a broader look. In the broader look, I can see this one thing that these particularly three age groups have high percentage. They're donating more money whereas the remaining two have shown a declining trend towards it, increasing trend towards it. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, the chart below shows the amount of leisure time enjoyed by men and women in different employment status. Write a report for a university lecturer describing the information below, and write a report for the university lecturer describing the information below. You should at least write 150 words. Okay, leisure time enjoyed in a typical week in an hour by sex and employment status. So basically, this graph is showing the amount of leisure time which is enjoyed by employed, employed part-time, unemployed, retired, and housewife. And this is distinguished by two categories, males and females. Let's see how an overview is written for this. Okay. As it's observed from a bar graph, the employed and retired men had more leisure time than other type of people. We can see this, that this more leisure time is observed here, right? It can be inferred that the males enjoyed more leisure time than women. Employed people had less leisure time than retired and unemployed people. So basically just given the highest and lowest. If you don't understand how to write the overview, a very simple theory to write an overview is to pick up what is highest and pick up what is lowest. If you're very confused, if you can't make comparisons with this particular graph, I can suggest that you can simply write that amongst all the categories, it was noticed that the unemployed and retired people had highest number of leisure hours compared to other three categories. Do we get this? Okay. Now, what I want you to do is, again, let's go back to the sample. Again, let's go back to the structure. Up till now, we have realized that there are 4 paragraphs uh, in our task. So basically, there is introduction, there is overview, which we've done correctly, there is body 1, and then there is body 2. Okay, introduction and overview. I hope I have clearly explained you, and I hope you get it. It is very simple. These are basically 2 paragraphs of 2 to 3 lines each, where the introduction is of 2 to 3 lines and the overview is of 2 to 3 lines. Introduction is nothing but the paraphrasing of the answer, paraphrasing of the question. Overview is nothing but when you're describing the general trends. Overview is something that you're just giving up the highest or lowest, or what you probably see at the first glance is your overview. Okay, now coming to body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. A very important tip here is that you keep a pen and paper in hand. You keep a pen and pencil in hand while doing this. And whatever you see, wherever you see comparisons, for example, I see that there is a slight increase in this green, that is females, or maybe I can see that there is a major increase in this, like this is 40 and this is approximately 80, so this is double. So keep marking these things. Then I see these two are similar. Then I see again this is substantially quite less. Again, I see this two is highest, whereas 1 and 2 categories don't have the column at all. And this is again, I guess, approximately double. So while brainstorming the graph, before writing the graph, I want you to brainstorm it. You are given marks for comparing the data and not just putting the data. I have seen a lot of students who come up with this, that, for example, the number of employed enjoyed 40 hours of leisure time. There is a number of females employed enjoyed slightly less. Then again, let's say employed females were the same and they enjoyed 40 hours again. Again, what these students end up doing is they end up giving out information rather than comparing information. Here you are not given marks for giving out information. In your graph, if you want really good marks, please end up with a lot of comparisons. Let us have a look at the body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. Okay, now see. Sorry. Among the full-time employed people, men had about 40 hours of leisure time on an average per week compared to 38 hours of leisure time for women. No data is given for the part-time employed men and women from this category and enjoyed 40 hours of leisure time in a week. This figure is slightly more than employed women, perhaps because of their employment nature. Again, did you see I've compared? Here is again a comparison that is done. Now see, unemployed and retired people had the longest period of leisure activity for both men and women. I had a bit more hours than women. Again, I had I have compared, I have taken unemployed and retired people in the same group and have compared by using the superlative form, that is longest. Okay. And then again, I have taken men comparing to women in the same line. Then see this. As expected, the retired and unemployed people enjoyed 78 to 82 hours per week, which is longer than people from other employment statuses. Again, a comparison is done. Okay. Lastly, housewives enjoyed approximately 50 hours of leisure time, which is more than employed women, but less than unemployed and retired women. The graph reflects that men had more leisure time from all employment statuses, which indicates that women spend more time working at home than men. Okay, now see, understand this thing, go through this. I'm keeping this on this particular slide on for another some time. What I really want you to do is see this and see how each line is compared. See, each statement which I have written is doing nothing but making comparisons. It is not just giving out information. This particular write up is not just giving out information, it is comparing one category to other categories all the time. At the same time, when comparing, I have tried to give out the maximum clarity as possible. Make sure that when you're writing the graph and when you're comparing things, you don't make it so confusing that it's difficult for the examiner to gauge. In any IELTS write up, clarity is most essential. What you're trying to show, what you're trying to write has to be understood for the examiner, right? It's not just for you. Okay, read this, read 1 and 2, giving you some time to read body paragraph 1 and 2. Body paragraph 1 and 2, see how I have compared, take a note of how I've compared each category to different other categories. Okay, I hope this is clear to you now. How to write the graph. Again, I'm repeating how to write the graph. The graph has to be written in an introduction. Introduction is nothing but when you paraphrase the question, when you rephrase the question. How are you supposed to do this? You're supposed to do this with two things. The first thing is by using synonyms. The second thing is by changing the sentence structure. Moving on, you write an overview. Now, what is an overview? The overview gives a broader picture of the graph. Overview gives you a picture that is, very a big picture basically, where you're not mentioning any figures, you're not doing anything, you're just maintaining what is the highest and what is the lowest. Okay, moving on, you have body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. Make sure that when you're writing body paragraph 1 and when you're writing body paragraph 2, you are not just giving out information, but you are comparing information. This comparison holds a lot of weightage in IELTS writing task 1, and when you're comparing this thing, it was one more, there is one more element that you have to take care, and that is clarity. Okay. Now, once we write, it is very important for you to understand how is this checked, what is the examiner looking for, why is that somebody gets a lot of has amazing band, somebody cannot get an amazing band. So what is basically required of you is mentioned here. Now see this, for a task 8 task achievement, basically you have 4 categories in which you are band, you had a band descriptors in 4 categories. The first category is task achievement. The second category is coherence and cohesion. The third category is lexical resource. And the fourth category is grammatical range and accuracy. There are 4 categories for your writing task 1, and we focus on 8 band. How do you get 8 bands here? So there are 4 descriptors as I mentioned. Now, what is task achievement in general? Forget RTS, forget anything else. What do you mean by task achievement when I'm saying that I want you to achieve a specific task? What does it mean? It means that you're able to fulfill what I'm trying to tell you, right? It means that you've done what I've asked you to do. Simple. And what have I asked you to do right now? I've asked you to simply take an infographic. I'm giving you a picture, and I want you to explain it fully. I want you to make sure that you are making relevant comparisons. Okay. So there's this first bullet point that says covers all the requirements of the task sufficiently. What is the requirement of my task? The requirement of my task is that you make relevant comparisons. Okay, now what is the second one? Presents, highlights, and illustrates the key features. So do we have an overview here? What is the presentation and highlighting of the key feature? The presentation and highlighting of the key feature is nothing but your overview. If you're writing a good overview, definitely you're going to score more marks in task achievement. Okay. The second point in this is you do it clearly and appropriately. That is again very important. Do not you lose clarity. When I say this, there are C's that are very important for your IELTS writing task one. And when I mention clarity, when you're doing comparison, when you're doing it with a lot of clarity, undoubtedly you're going to receive very, very good marks in your task achievement. Okay, now the second column, as you can see here, is coherence and cohesion. The second column that you see here is coherence and cohesion. Now, what does coherence and cohesion mean? Coherence and cohesion is nothing but when you synchronize your ideas properly, when you're writing it in a proper form, when you're actually going through the sequence of it properly, it's nothing but coherence and cohesion. Firstly, how do you get this? How do you get it? Is the most simplest, but still a lot of students lose marks in this. Now, how do you sequence an information? You sequence an information by using the structure I'm giving you. So our structure is introduction, overview, body 1, body 2. Under any circumstances, don't lose out on this structure. You will definitely get very good marks in coherence and cohesion. Second thing, what I really want you to do is maintain the paragraphing very sufficiently. Sequences the information logically. Obviously, you do it one category. Don't make it haphazard. You do it step by step. So that will help you get good marks. Second thing, you make use of linking devices. This is majorly done in task 2, but even in task 1. For one sentence to another, it should not look abrupt. Your sentence cannot end abruptly and start abruptly. There has to be some sort or some link to it. So that's coherence and cohesion. Okay, now coming to lexical resource. Lexical resource, what does this term mean? This term simply means that when you have a wide range of vocabulary, when you have a lot of vocab to use, it is called a lexical resource. So basically in your task 1, there are few lexical resources which are obvious, which I will give it to you at the end of the presentation. So you keep using them. Also, one very important thing in lexical resource is that you're actually using adjectives, you're using nouns, like for example, and adverbs, like you want to say there was an increase. So you don't just say there was an increase, you say there was a gradual increase, a slight increase, there was a slight change, there was, you keep comparing with using words. Let's go to the sample and see. I'll explain you how lexical resource works. Okay, now see, let's go for this one. The figure is slightly more. I wanted to say it is more, but I said slightly more. So I'm adding an adverb to it. Now see, longest periods. Longest is the superlative form of long, where I'll use the word longest to compare amongst all the things. Rather than 50 hours, I've written approximately 50 hours. So see, basically lexical resource does not mean only those fancy heavy words. Lexical resource is when you're actually not repeating words. One thing is something very important for lexical resource. Secondly, using the correct word at the correct place is very, very important. If you really want good marks in lexical resource, please ensure that you're using the correct word at the correct place, and you're definitely going to get through this. Okay, now see, what does lexical resource here mean? It means that you're using a wide range of vocabulary fluently and flexibly to convey the precise meaning. That means you're using correct vocabulary and you've spoken it fluently, you're flexible enough for this, and you've used appropriate words. Okay, skillfully uses uncommon lexical resource, but there may be occasional inaccuracies in word choice and collocation. Now, what does collocation mean? Collocation is nothing but your group words. Your group words like slightly more, basically adverb plus verb or verb plus adjective is your collocation. Okay, produces rare errors in spellings and word formation. Cancel this out. I absolutely don't want any errors coming to spellings, coming to word formation. I cannot, honestly saying it's not allowed. Don't do these. Use words. I mean, there are some words that are very common. Like, for example, people get confused. Like, it's gradually. Is it double L or is it single L? So I keep checking papers. I'm like, wrong. So at least the words that you commonly use, the words that are very repetitive, please be very careful with them. Make a note of them, learn them by heart, write them 10 times, do whatever it takes to get the spellings right. Okay. Again, I'm repeating for lexical resource task one, to get good balance, you have a lot of wide range variety, lot of words, lot of collocations, lot of adjectives, lot of adverbs that you can use, and make sure you use them. Like for describing trends, you have to use specific words. For describing changes, you have to use specific words. Obviously in flowchart you can't use them all, so flowchart you have to maintain your linking structure very well. So there are certain things in lexical resource that I really want you to take care of. The fourth is grammatical range and accuracy. Now, what is grammatical range and what is grammatical accuracy? These are two different components and majorly contributing to your score. What is the grammatical range? What is the grammatical accuracy? Grammatical range simply means that when you're using a wide range of sentence structure, grammatical range simply means that you're using a wide range of sentence structure is a range, and accuracy is that you're not making any errors. So firstly, what do you mean by wide range of sentence structure? A wide range of sentence structure is a simple sentence, a compound sentence, a complex sentence, a passive voice, your interrogative. Obviously, you don't have interrogative here. So basically, you're not just very monotonous in your graph, you're making use of complex structures. How to make use of complex structures? You make use of complex structures by adding, coordinating conjunctions like though, although, despite of. You can make the complex structures using them. Second thing, what about accuracy? Accuracy is you're not making any errors. So I'll tell you which all topics do students generally make errors in. Very minor, very, I can say it's ant-sized. It's called punctuation. Full stops, commas hold a lot of importance with IELTS. Articles hold a lot of importance. Capital letters, there's singular plural. There is subject verb agreement. There is noun pronoun agreement, parallel structure, and redundancy. Please make sure that you are not making errors in any of these topics. Also, the tenses have to be very clear, using the correct tense, the correct place. To go to see, our data is given in the past tense. Normally, I prefer the graph in the past tense because it is a reported speech. And whenever you write a reported speech, it's always in the past tense. So one thing I'm putting a lot of emphasis on to when you write task one, make sure it's in the past tense. I'm again repeating what all grammar things that you need to focus on. When you check, when you're writing your essay, when you're writing a graph, read one paragraph, check, read another, write another paragraph, check, write the third body paragraph, check, and fourth. Don't check the whole thing together. You will not be able to find your flaws. Okay. Now, what are the things that you have to check for? One, full stops, commas. Second, articles. Third, whether you use your adjectives and adverbs properly. Fourth, whether you use a singular plural properly. Fifth, subject verb agreement. Noun pronoun agreement. If you don't know these, please look it up. Look at it. We've done 2 webinars on grammar already. You can have a look at the pre-recorded webinars that Shweta Gandhi has taken, and I'm very sure you'll gain a lot of insight to grammatical range and accuracy with this. I've also taken one webinar on writing task one before this, and even this will be recorded and uploaded. So if you want, you can have a glance at it. And if you like, if you really, if you benefited from it, do like and subscribe for our IELTS tutorials. I'm very sure that they are very, very insightful and very, very informative. Okay, so let's look at the bullet points. There are 3 bullet points which are given here. The first bullet point says that it uses a wide range of structures. The second sentence says majority of the statements are error-free. Makes only occasional errors or inappropriateness. Let's not do this at all. Let's focus on creating a graph. Let's focus on writing a graph which is flawless, which is absolutely errorless. Okay, so again, let me explain you how your graph is tracked. There is task achievement, there is coherence, cohesiveness, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. Task achievement, you compare the data with a lot of clarity is a task achievement. Coherence is making use of paragraphs and you're making use of linking structure. Lexical resources, you're not repeating words, you're using different words, you're using a wide range of vocab structure which is appropriately employed. The fourth is grammatical range and accuracy. Grammatical range implies that you're making use of simple, compound, complex, passive statements. Accuracy implies that you're not, your graph is error-free. That's accuracy. Okay, these are the words that I was talking about. These are the phrases that you can use. These are the words you can use. For example, when you're using a noun, like let's say I want to tell that there is a rise in the demand. So you can simply say that there's a sharp rise, there is a considerable rise, there's a slight rise. So please use nouns plus adjectives, verbs plus adverbs. At the same time, the phrases are very, very useful. You guys can take a note of this. So never use a noun alone, always use it with an adjective. Never use a verb alone, always use it with an adverb. Make sure you actually use a lot of phrases. Okay, I'm moving ahead. What are the strategies? Basically, this is what I've summed up in the entire last 2 slides, and then we're done. Meanwhile, if you have any queries, you can keep posting. The first strategy is to identify the different types of graph. Know what the key information and comparisons are trying to look forward. So basically, the first 2 bullet points imply that you have to read, and understand the question. Reading the question and understanding the question is very, very important. Second thing, practice using specific vocabulary. So please learn the nouns, the adjectives, the adverbs, the phrases which are required for describing trends. Okay. Learn how to follow, plan to start, complete, and finish answer. This implies on time management. You only have 20 minutes to do this. So plan it out accordingly. Keep 5 minutes for brainstorming. Keep 10 minutes for writing. And, keep the remaining 5 minutes for checking. Know what not to include in your response. Please, this is a very important key point. You are not supposed to include any perceptions that are yours. You're not supposed to, write any thoughts that are only yours. You're not supposed to give your own opinion. Your only job is to describe the graph. Your only job is to describe the information which is presented in the graph. So please be very, very careful with this. Okay, moving on. What are the common errors? The common errors writing about everything. As I said, you're not required to give the information, every information. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to compare. Next point, which is very important, is don't overcomplicate the question. Don't make the question, your write-up has to be clear and very easy to understand. It can't be very complicated. Not organizing the ideas logically. Please paragraph it well. Describing the data incorrectly. Whatever the figures are given, make sure that you write it correctly. Like for example, if there's 40 years, you can't write 70 years. Of course, a little bit up down, you can write with the word approximately. That sounds absolutely fine to me. That is not at all a problem in itself. Okay, there are a few things that I want to tell you before ending this webinar. Yes, coming back. I hope the presentation was really useful to you and you had a lot of insights out of it. There are a few things that I want to tell you before the webinar ends. Um, One thing which is very, very important is that when you're actually writing a graph, don't take too long for it. You have 20 minutes for it. Make sure at the end of 20 minutes you're done with this. So your time management aspect has to be really good with it. So divide your time accordingly. 5 minutes brainstorming, 10 minutes to write, 5 minutes to check. Again, I'm repeating 5 minutes of brainstorming, 5 minutes to 10 minutes to write, and 5 minutes to check your answers. This is a very important part. Second thing, identify what is given in the graph. Take time to understand what the figure is about. Because the moment you know what the figure is about, you will be able to describe it better in words. Third thing, mark it. You have a pencil in hand. If you see when I write graphs or when I do samples, you won't like there is so much of information in there that when I put it to words, it's very, very simple. I don't have to waste a lot of time thinking because my thoughts are already roughly written. And to make it fair, it's easy. When you do this, you don't keep on erasing. That in your exams, this generally happens that when you're writing, you write a statement and then you erase it. Again, you write a statement, again, you erase it. So when you're writing, it doesn't happen that you keep on erasing it again and again. So please have a rough layout for it. Another very important part for IELTS writing graph is don't ignore it. Before you go for an exam, keep practicing each time. Practice one line, one bar, one pie chart, one flow chart, diagram, map. Practice each category. How do you practice? Read the question, write the question, get sampled, get it evaluated. Once you're done with the evaluation of it, what I really want you to do is read the samples very well. Read the samples after you're done. Don't read it before. Because see, when you're reading it before, you already have a certain perception or thought to it, which I don't want you to have. Rather, when you're reading, when you're writing it, and then when you're doing it, you can realize your own mistakes. Also, yeah, before I forget to tell you, we have an evaluation service, as most of you all know. So I'll just give you, and for those who are attending the webinar, there's a 15% discount of it. That's a courtesy from the IELTS tutorials online. There is a code that you have to write, and it's called writing 10. WRITING 10. So you can actually, if you're wanting to get it evaluated, you can definitely get it done. And writing 10 is your discount code on which you'll get 15% discount. So go ahead in case you want to utilize that. Also, we have an IELTS online application. We have IELTS online website, IELTS tutorials online. So in case you want to practice online, which is one of the best ways. So that app is something that one can just go through it. You're traveling and you want to go through that, you can just download and run it. There are various tests online on our site which are available. So these tests are basically very authentic. We've verified it ourselves, so you will have a great idea to it. You won't have a problem to it. Okay, meanwhile, let's get back to the summary. One thing I've explained to you is the format. Before you go for your exam, practice each time. Second, always stick to the format: introduction, overview. Introduction, you write the question in your own words. Overview, you take a broader picture, no figures here. Body 1, you're making comparisons. Body 2, again, you're making comparisons. There is no conclusion which is needed in writing task 1. Okay, moving ahead, band descriptors. There are 4 band descriptors. Whenever you sit to write, keep the band descriptor sheet in hand because that is equally important for you to practice, because unless and until you know what the examiner is asking from you, you will not be able to get it. Any queries, I've given you tips. Please do your time management well. Please learn your vocab well, because if you know your vocab well, you will be able to solve it very nicely. You won't be short of words if you know your vocabulary well. And vocabulary for task 1 is the simplest because there are certain specific words for certain specific things which you are maybe aware of. So go for that, learn your vocabulary, learn your spellings well, don't create any spelling errors. Before you go for the exam, please learn certain grammatical concepts like what simple, compound, complex statements are, what subject verb agreement is, what noun pronoun agreement is, what is a parallel structure. These are very important topics for grammar coming to IELTS. So please make sure that you're learning them by heart. You're actually going through them before you go for your exams. As far as I see, there are no queries. So I hope the presentation was very clear, very easy for you. Next time you write a graph, I hope you do it much better than what you've done before. And I hope you all get amazing scores. You get the scores that you desire. Wishing you all the best. And I'm signing off for this morning. In case you have any queries, you can revert us. You can revert us as IELTS tutorial. This recorded session will be available to you, I think, maximum by tomorrow. You can have a view of it. Thank you so much, and I hope you found this webinar very useful. Thank you all the attendees for attending this. Don't forget you get a discount for appearing here. Thank you.